Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this live stream, live broadcast. We're going to do a quick, short session today discussing a very, very important topic. And the topic I want to discuss today is atheism really worth it, right? And it's going to be a very interesting topic, and I'm going to touch upon this from a few different perspectives and really get us to think about what are the implications of adopting atheism or ascribing to atheism or adhering to this view, this worldview, claiming to be an atheist and adopting it as a position. What does it mean, right? And what does it mean for a human being, and what does it mean for our lives? What does it mean for us on a personal level, on a private level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a social level, all of these things, right? Because the reality is, brothers, sisters and friends, that whenever we as human beings, we adopt a position, we hold a view, we adhere to a group or a way or a philosophy, then that has some implications. It has implications for our lives. Now, what I want to discuss in this short live stream is when you adopt atheism as a worldview, as a way, what implications does this have for you, right? And also we'll look at Islam, and we'll see when you adopt Islam as a worldview, what implications does that have for you, right? And how do all of these views relate to you as a human being? Adopting these views relate to who you really are, and what your real purpose is as a human being. Now, before I officially get into the topic, I'd like anyone that watches this now is live, or anyone that watches later, please share this live stream so other people that may watch later can also benefit from this, that they may be able to gain something from this. It may get them thinking. It may hold something that people are looking for. Some questions that they may have had may be answered in this live stream, right? For the Muslims, this is an opportunity for you to give da'wah, for you to call people and make people aware of the true purpose of life, about who they are, why they're here, where they're going, who created them. And if you're a non-Muslim that's watching this, then I'm sure you'll find this very, very interesting. So stay through till the end, and I'm sure most of your questions will be answered. And if you have any questions, anyone that's watching, if you have any questions, please leave them below in the comment section below. So what I'm going to try to do, if I see the questions come up on my screen, I'm going to answer them straight away. And if I don't see them, I'm going to go back to them after the live stream and try to answer all of your questions. So make sure to leave your questions and your comments below, and make sure to share this. Also click the notification tab, because we go live as much as we can possibly on this page. So every now and then there will be a live stream from this page. So for you to stay up to date with them, make sure live notification button. Now, when it comes to atheism, this is what I want to discuss. What does it mean to adopt atheism as a worldview, as a way of life? There are certain implications when you adopt this view. Now, I know it's popular, especially in the times we live in. Most people claim to be atheists because they see it as something many people are doing, right? Most, they go to schools, colleges, universities, they see people who call themselves atheists. They see, people who adhere to this view, and they see people on YouTube, they see people like Richard Dawkins, they see people like Sam Harris, they see people like Lawrence Krauss, Daniel Dennett, all of these famous popular atheists, and they think that this is something very cool, this is something very trendy, this is something, that everyone seems to be doing, which is not the case, but it just seems to come across that way. So when people see this, they generally just follow like sheep. They just follow blindly. But the problem is, when you follow such views blindly, what you don't realize is that it has certain implications for you as a human being. Now, when you claim to be an atheist, or when you claim to follow the atheist or follow this worldview and this philosophy, what does it mean, right? What are you saying? What are you believing? Essentially, the first thing we need to do now is to define what atheism is, right? Most people are just following atheism. I really believe most people just call themselves atheists because it's just popular, right? It's just something a lot of people are doing. It's quite trendy, and okay, let's just do it, right? But when you really ask many atheists, what do you believe? They're quite clueless. Many times, most atheists will be like, I'm not really sure. I don't know if there is a God, there isn't a God. Some even say, I don't even think I doubt God. I just haven't thought about it. I just don't think about it, right? It's not because they have some good, strong reasons to hold this position. It's the contrary. The opposite is true. Sometimes it's just because people are doing it and I'm going to do it, right? So this being the case, what does it really mean when you say you are an atheist? Now, there is no clear definition. You can't say atheist, or someone that describes atheism means they believe this, this, and this, and that's it, it's set in stone. No. But generally, there is a conception of what an atheist is. Now, generally speaking, an atheist, or someone who claims to be an atheist, is somebody who says that there is no divine theistic concept of God. There is no divine being. There is no supernatural being. There is no creator. There is no cause that's beyond the physical, that created everything and is maintaining everything and is sustaining everything, right? Now, to be fair, some atheists will entertain, and rightly so, because they understand the problems with atheism. They will entertain that there probably is something out there beyond the physical, right? Some atheists will say this, and atheism allows for that room. But naturalists, on the other hand, and most atheists are naturalists. Naturalists are those people who would say that all that exists is just physical. There is nothing beyond the physical. It's all one closed physical system. That's it. There is nothing beyond this. So there is no supernatural, there is no creator beyond the physical. It's all physical. Everything we see in the world around us is a result of physical things. Other physical stuff have resulted in other physical stuff. Now, in a nutshell, if we were to just summarize and just to have this general category, what we can say is that atheists and naturalists are those who say that there is no supernatural being or creator, there is no personal being, there is no creator who is beyond the physical, who is in control of everything, who is maintaining and sustaining everything, who created everything, right? They would not believe in this. They would not believe, in particular, any theistic concept of God, right? So when it will come to Islam, or even, for example, Christianity or Judaism, they will say we don't believe in this conception of God. And what they sometimes do is that they put all of these ways of life, these religions, into the same basket. They say Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and so on and so forth, all are the same. But they're not. There's a huge difference when it comes to Islam from all of these other religions. And we could probably go into this a bit later. But the key point to understand here is that they won't accept, generally speaking, a theistic concept of God. They will say that there is no God, there is no supernatural, there is nothing beyond the physical. Now, somebody who adopts this view and calls himself an atheist, this has implications. Any worldview, like we said, that you hold will have implications. Because the worldview comes with some assumptions. The worldview that you adopt comes with certain assumptions and premises that you need to follow, that you need to adhere to, that have a meaning for you in your life, right? So, for example, let's just take an example. A humanist, and most atheists call themselves humanists, would say that they are humanists, and their philosophy now means that they have to be human towards other beings and creatures and be good and so on and so forth. So their worldview has an impact on their lives and the way they live and they express themselves. In the same way, if you adopt atheism, it has some implications. Now, the main area I want to look into from the implications of atheism, as we do in the organization that I work for, IERA, the brothers have developed some very, very powerful insights and arguments when it comes to pointing out the implications of atheism. What does it mean when you adopt atheism as a worldview, right? When you say you are an atheist, you deny God, what does it mean for you in your personal life? What does it mean for you? Now, when you really reflect over this and you really think about this, you will see that it has some very, very dire, dark, sad implications, that will really affect you on a very deep level as a human being. Now, for example, I would say that if you claim to be an atheist, you cannot claim any true purpose in your life. There is no ultimate purpose from that perspective. Because think about it for a second. If you're an atheist, you believe there is no creator, there is no supernatural, there is no God. Therefore, what you believe is that everything is a result of blind, random, dead, physical processes. Just physical stuff which somehow emerged over billions and billions of years, has randomly, without any foresight, without any creator or any type of intelligence behind it, has been just randomly colliding into each other and somehow formed into everything we see in the world today, including us human beings. But they will say that it's all just physical stuff, just different rearrangements of physical stuff. Now, if this is the case, then where is the ultimate purpose in life? Where does this concept of purpose come from? There is no purpose. It's all just physical stuff. You are just an accident. Now, if you're just an accident, then how can you claim there's any purpose behind things? Right? You can't. Now, as an atheist, you may give yourself purpose, as human beings do. You may say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a philanthropist, I want to be this, that, and the other, right? Which is fine. You can give yourself a purpose, but that's not ultimate purpose. That's just purpose you're making up for yourself. There is no truth behind what you're saying, real truth. It's just an idea that you've come up with, you've told yourself is correct, and you're following it. There is no ultimate purpose. You are just an accident, according to atheism, that's somehow come into existence, and you're going to die, and you're going to disappear, and never to be heard of ever again. That's it. That's what life is. You are living to die, and you are simply an accident. And accidents, from their perspective, have no purpose. There is no ultimate purpose. Now, as a human being, when you reflect over these things as a physical and a spiritual being who has a nature, from the Islamic tradition, we know every single human being has a nature called the fitrah. Deep down inside, you know something doesn't add up there. Something doesn't make sense. Because as a human being, deep down inside, you know you are driven by purpose. You are looking for purpose. Why am I here? What's my purpose? You want to do something, and something truly meaningful. It's not just this arbitrary purpose that you give yourself. But on atheism, you can't account for any true purpose because you're just an accident, right? And as we'll see during this discussion, that the philosophy of atheism or naturalism goes completely against the nature of a human being, right? And this itself shows that the worldview of atheism or naturalism or any of these philosophies is flawed at its very nature. Now let's move on. Let's look at something else. Let's look at value. Where is value on atheism? And what I mean by value is, as human beings, we value things, right? Now we ascribe value to different things. For example, I'm speaking to you guys right now. I'm a human being, right? And you would value me as a human being. Imagine in my hand, for example, I can't see anything right now. So imagine I've got this cup. There's a cup in my hand, and this cup you'll give a certain value to as well, right? Now, hypothetically speaking, imagine you had a choice to take a hammer and just smash one of these things, myself or the cup, right? So you've got a hammer, you have to smash something, either me or the cup. Now, as a rational, human being who has a nature, who understands value, you would conclude that if you had a choice, you would smash the cup over me. You won't smash me as a human being. Any of you guys watching this right now would say that, right? Any sane, rational human being will say, if I had the choice between smashing you, Imran, or smashing the cup, I will smash the cup, right? Now, if I was to ask you guys the question, why, you will think about it and you'll say, look, you're a human being, you're conscious, you have value, you're a sentient being, right? But the cup is just a piece of plastic that's arranged in a certain way. Now, what you've done as a human being, you have ascribed value to me, and you've ascribed a certain value to the cup. And what you've concluded is that I am more valuable than the cup, right? But here lies a problem, which is that on atheism and naturalism, again, if everything is a result of blind, random, dead physical stuff, right? Think about this for a second. Blind, random, dead physical stuff, then where is the value? Like, why are you giving me value over the cup? You may give me reasons for it, but these concepts that you're coming up with, this value that you're ascribing to me, where does that come from? Where does your idea of this value come from on atheism and naturalism? Remember, it's all just physical stuff. There is nothing beyond the physical. So all of these things that you're ascribing to me, all of these principles you're ascribing to me, like, oh, you're this, and this, therefore you're more valuable. Where'd you get this from? It's just something you just come up with. There's no real something solid behind it. So on atheism and naturalism, if you really think about it, there is no difference between smashing me and smashing the cup, because according to them, and if you really scrutinize it, according to them, I am just a rearrangement of molecules and physical stuff. The cup is just a rearrangement of molecules and physical stuff. That's it. There is no other difference. There is literally no other difference, right? It's just a different rearrangement of molecules, just different rearrangement of physical stuff. Because remember, on atheism and naturalism, everything is just physical. It's just physical, random stuff which has come together for some reason or the other, and that's it. Now, if you really think about this, brothers, sisters, and friends, there's something inherently wrong in this. Just from a human nature perspective, you know deep down inside something is really wrong with what I'm saying right now. And it is wrong. We know, just intuitively we know it's wrong. You don't even have to rationalize it. right? But when you ascribe to and adopt atheism or naturalism, this is what you have to follow through with. You have to follow through with what the package comes with, basically, which is that if you ascribe to atheism or naturalism, then you have to accept that everything is just physical, and different things that are a different rearrangement of physical stuff. Full stop. That's it. That's it, literally. Now, let's move on to something else. Let's think about something else. For example, justice. You know, as human beings, again, something very natural and innate and intuitive, that we want justice. We want justice to be established, right? Now, again, conceptions of what justice is, how do we define it? It's a very, very grey area, especially when it comes to philosophy such as atheism and naturalism. But if you really think about it, if we are just here and we're just physical, we are an accident, we're living today and we're going to die tomorrow, and that's it, there is nothing beyond this, then if you really think about this, where is the ultimate justice? There isn't. If you really think about it, you can live a life as a saint and do all of the good things in the world, and you're going to die, and you could live the life of an evil tyrant and, you know, destroy the lives of millions of people, and you're just going to die. The end is the same on atheism or naturalism. There is no ultimate justice. And again, from a human, natural, innate, even rational perspective, it just doesn't add up. Something doesn't make sense, right? Take, for example, happiness, meaningful happiness. Happiness is something, if you really scrutinize people as to why they do what they do, happiness is the thing that will almost always come out. I just want to be happy, right? But again, on atheism and naturalism, you may temporarily be happy with the things around you, the physical possessions that you may have, you know, the things that you may have acquired. But where is the meaningful, lasting happiness? There isn't any. Because remember, you're just an accident, you're living and you're going to die. There is just no answers. But as an inquisitive human being, we ask the questions: who am I? Where have I come from? Where am I going? What's my purpose? You know, who put me here? You know, where am I going to go when I die? If we don't get the answers to these very fundamental, basic questions that we ask, then how could we truly be happy? Right? You may be distracted, but you're not going to be truly happy. Right? Now, there's a very interesting book I'll really recommend you guys to pick up and read. It's called The Divine Reality. I think you could get it from Amazon. It's called The Divine Reality, The Mirage of Islam. Islam is called The Divine Reality, God, Islam, and the Mirage of Atheism. Right? I really recommend you guys pick that up, read it, because this argument that I'm covering right now is in the book and it's in a lot more depth and detail. And in the book, the author gives a very, very, very powerful analogy of somebody who's sitting somewhere, they fall asleep, and when they wake up, they're on a plane, right? Now just put yourself in the position. Imagine you're in your room right now, you're listening to this live stream, and suddenly you fall asleep, and then the next thing you remember, you wake up and you're on a plane, right? And the plane is flying. Now ask yourself, what's the first questions that are going to come to your mind? Who put me here? How did I get on the plane? I was sitting in a room, now I'm on this plane. Where is this plane going? You know, is it going to stop? Where is it going to stop? All of these questions will start running through your mind as a human being. Now, you may temporarily get distracted. You may look out the window and see a beautiful view. You may start noticing the comfort of the chair you're sitting on. You may be presented with a very delicious 5-star meal. There may be some nice music playing in the background, whatever the case is, right? You may temporarily be distracted by the things around you. But ask yourself the question, could you truly be happy if you don't have the answers to those fundamental questions that you asked yourself in the beginning? Who put me here? Where is it going? The plane going? When is it going to land? What's going on, right? Unless you have the answers to these questions, you can't truly find meaningful happiness. And this is the analogy of life. We are here, we're born, we ask these questions, but on the worldview of atheism and naturalism, you will never find any answers, because according to them, we are just an accident, we're here and we're gone tomorrow. There are no answers. So how can you truly be happy? And again, this goes against the human nature, because deep down inside we know just something about us. We recognize that if we are asking these questions, there must be answers. And we are still searching for them, right? And there's many other perspectives we could look at, right? Value we've looked at, purpose we've looked at, happiness we've looked at, justice we've looked at, hope is another one. Where is the hope on atheism or naturalism? Imagine someone on their deathbed and they're dying, and they have a few days to live. They have no hope. Who can they reach out to? Who can they call out to? Who can help them at that point? There is nothing. There is nothing, right? So just from a purely personal, social, you know, level, atheism and naturalism, if you really follow it through, if you're really honest with yourself and you follow it through and you really think about its implications, what you will realize is that it leads you down a very deep, dark, depressing place. That a human being, just the way the human being is designed and wired and created, cannot function under this philosophy or this idea. We are not designed to live as atheists or naturalists. We can see purely from what I've just discussed. It goes against everything a human being is, right? It just degrades a human being from that perspective. Now, when you look at Islam, for example, it fulfills the human being from all of these perspectives, right? And what's very interesting is that in the Quran itself, now the Quran is the final revelation of God, in which God reveals to mankind or human beings for one last time His revelation, His message, which calls people back to His worship alone, to not ascribe any partners to Him, to not ascribe any other beings to Him, and to worship Him and Him alone. In the Quran, God says in many places, one very beautiful place, God says those that turn away from His remembrance will live a very, very difficult, depressed, suffocating life. Very, very difficult, suffocating life. And these words ring true when we look at reality. We look at people who have everything from a material, physical perspective, but because they haven't found their real purpose, they haven't found their creator, they haven't found their God, they haven't found what they were here to do, they are depressed, they are sad. Look at some rich people, famous people, they have all of the money, some of them commit suicide. They're just not happy. They're not fulfilled. Because as a human being, you were created to do something. And you've been given internal sort of compasses, the internal sort of directors which direct you to your purpose. But unless you're fulfilling it and you're finding it, you will never be happy or satisfied, right? This worldly life, the material world, will never satisfy you. Test it for yourself, right? For example, all of us have done this in our lives. We've tested this to some extent, where we always want something, we desire something, we're looking forward to something, we get excited, we save money for it, and then when we buy it, temporarily we're happy. But after 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 days, it's just stuff. It's just physical stuff. That's it. There's nothing else behind it. We're chasing things which are not going to fulfill us, and a human being can't help himself but chase these things because it's our nature, it's the way we're created. We're born to worship God. Let me just put it bluntly. Right? We're born to know our Creator and to worship Him, and through this we'll find fulfillment. And until we find Him, we will keep searching, we'll keep looking. We will look into different avenues, different streams. We'll look just to satisfy that emptiness that's inside. We are looking to satisfy. Some people run after materialism. They run after money. They think money's going to do it for them. Some people think it's drugs. Some people think it's women. Some people think it's whatever they think it is. But the point is, these things will never cut it. And our lives are testament to this. We've chased these things, we've run after these things, but we haven't found the satisfaction that we're looking for. This in itself should be the greatest proof for us that it's not these things that we were designed to worship or follow, right? But we were created to worship God and to follow God. And when you follow God and you worship Him, all of your questions are answered. Purpose gets answered. God tells us in the Quran, in the final revelation, that He created us to worship Him, to know Him, to worship Him. Right? Worship doesn't just mean praying to God. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions out there regarding Islam and regarding, what Islam teaches. But worship is the core component of this way of life, which is to worship the Creator. And this also means to be grateful to Him. That's one of the essence of it. To be grateful. Gratitude is a natural human condition. We have to be grateful as human beings, right? So God tells us very clearly. He says He created us to worship Him. The very first verse in the Quran says, or the second verse, depending what opinion you follow, says, all thanks and praise belongs to God, the creator of everything that exists. Think about this. All thanks and praise. Gratitude is such an integral part of the human state that we need to give thanks. And someone who's very sincere and honest, if he reflects over his life, yes, he's gone through difficult times and hardships and trials and tribulations, but he's been given a lot of good as well. If someone truly reflects and is humble, he'll think my eyesight, my hearing, my ability to breathe, my heart's beating and functioning, I have family, I have loved ones, I have all of these beautiful things in life. And most of these things that I have, who do I thank? You know, when someone buys me a car, my parents buy me a car, when someone buys me a new watch or a gift, I thank that person. But these gifts that I've been given, like my eyesight, my hearing, my speech, my life, who do I thank? You know, this gratitude is just building up inside of us, and we need to give it, right? We need to be grateful. So God, in the very first beginning of the Quran, He says, all thanks and praise, perfect thanks and praise belongs to God. Give it to God. That's what it belongs to. And that's the essence of our relationship with our Creator, to thank Him and to worship Him. You know, that's what it's all about. And when you start to do that, you start to find peace and tranquility in life. You start to realize the veils start to be removed, and you start to realize, you know what? It's not the physical world that's going to satisfy me. If I have physical things, I thank God for it. You know, it's a blessing. I enjoy them. If I don't have it, I'm just patient, right? Because it's not the be-all and end-all. The be-all and end-all is God. That's the one I need to connect with and to worship and to come close to, not these physical things, right? Now, obviously, it sounds all nice and well when we talk about these things. In real life, it is difficult. It's hard. Sometimes we fall off track. Sometimes we need to pick ourselves up again and get going again. But it's fine. It's not about being perfect. Human beings aren't perfect. It's just about being persistent and trying to be better and better and better. But as soon as you realize and you understand and you come to terms with your real purpose and what reality really is, and you recognize your Creator and you start to worship Him, at that very moment, peace and tranquility and all of these things start coming into your life, even though you're not perfect, right? Because you're working your way towards now your purpose. And that's the key, and that's the essence, right? Ultimate justice we spoke about. Islam answers this because we know there will be a day of judgment. And on the day of judgment, everything will be equalized. Everything will be, ultimate justice will be established by God, right? So justice is taken care of. Value makes sense. God created us. He created us as human beings, as sentient, rational beings, right? So we have value as human beings. Purpose, we've spoken about that already. Happiness, meaningful happiness. Once you recognize your purpose and you start to fulfill your purpose, which is to worship God, then naturally you start to become happy because you've found what you've been chasing all your life, right? Now, what's very interesting is many people at this point, or just generally atheists, would ask, well, what's the proof of the Quran? Because we live in a time where people are looking for rational reasons. They want rational reasons for everything. It's just the way our minds have been programmed through the educational systems and the times we live in, right? It's almost like seeing is always believing. That's what they say. If I see it, I will believe it. But in Islam, it's the opposite, right? The truth of the matter is, in some cases, if you believe, you will see it. Because in Islam, we don't begin with doubt. We don't begin with skepticism. We don't begin with this position. In Islam, what we begin with is certainty. We begin with God. That's the first principle. Because we realize and we recognize that if you deny God, you can't make sense of anything. Nothing makes sense. As we've seen, your life doesn't make sense without God. So you begin with God. And the truth of God is already embedded within our hearts. From our tradition, we know that God has placed within every single human nature, the fitrah, His knowledge of His oneness, of His existence, and that all worship and thanks and praise belongs to Him. That's already within us, deep down inside us. So, and this is very interesting because people ask for proofs of Quran, for the Quran. Give me some tangible evidence. There's a lot of evidence for the Quran being a miracle, right? But what I like to do is, if a person is sincere, I just tell them, pick up the Quran and sincerely read the book. Read it for yourself. And I've seen this many, many times. Those that are sincere and looking for the truth, they pick up the Quran, and as soon as they open it, they recognize it. There's an internal, intuitive recognition that takes place, which is beyond any other evidence that anyone could desire or want. Because the nature of the human being that God created, which is not physical, when it comes into contact with revelation from God, which is from beyond the physical, and these two things meet, there's something very, very special that happens. There is a recognition. It's like two pieces of the puzzle coming together and they're fitting perfectly, right? There's something very, very special that happens. And also on top of this, then when the person looks into the reality in the world, as we know, God has said everything around us, this physical universe, one of its purpose is that it's a sign. It's a sign for us so we can reflect over it and it leads us to God. So when all of these three things come together, revelation, your nature as a human being, signs of God, reason, rational arguments, a pure sound intellect when it reasons over the world, when all of these things come together, it gives you this type of certainty which is beyond doubt, right? And that's where we begin. We begin with the human nature, the fitrah, which recognizes God. So I'd encourage anyone that's really trying to figure out what life is all about, why we're here, where we're going, what's the purpose, to be really, start off with humility, right? That's the key. Just be really honest and humble. Look yourself in the mirror and say, look, do I want the truth? Or do I just want to keep exercising my ego and, just continue to believe and live in this delusion that I'm this genius guy who knows it all and is able to do all things? Because the reality is, unless you're humble and you start with humility, guidance isn't going to come, right? And this is why in the Quran, God breaks the arrogance and the ego of the human being many, many times. God reminds us of where you came from, God tells us in the Quran that wasn't there this long period of time where you weren't even a thing mentioned. You weren't even a thing mentioned, right? Not even a person, you weren't even a thing mentioned. That God tells us in another part that He created you from a drop of fluid. And almost instantly you stand in front of God like a contender, like a challenger, So God humbles you. He really breaks you down, because once you're broken down, you're humbled. That's when you can start to receive guidance. And you recognize that you're nothing. And as soon as you take that sort of greatness of yourself out of your heart, it makes room for the greatness of God to enter your heart. And that's where guidance begins. So start off looking yourself in the mirror, really humble yourself. And you're probably there already. You're probably already humble, probably just want the truth and you're looking into it. The next thing I would suggest you do is pick up the Quran, read it for yourself, and I'm sure you'll find the truth in it. I guess I'll conclude on that point. We'll try to do these regularly, once a week. I know sometimes I'm a bit slow, so I do a week and miss a few weeks. I apologize for that. Click the notification button. Make sure anyone that's watching this right now, please share this. If you have any questions, please leave them below. So straight after this live stream, I'll go through the questions at the bottom. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. Any Muslims watching this right now, if there's any non-Muslims that have questions below and I miss them, please do help answer those questions as well. Till next time, thank you for watching. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. Assalamu alaikum.